Hey guys, welcome to Nate and Greg's World. We're here today and we're talking about women in the STEM field. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's been a big push on lately. Actually, it's been going on for a really long time to get women into the STEM field. We have a friend of mine on today who is a medical laboratory technologist who's going to talk first off of what the fuck that is so that we have some kind of idea. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole thing about getting women into other fields and, you know what, why not guys into other fields that are normally dominated by women. So make sure you hit that subscribe and bell icon down below to stay up to date with us. And make sure you leave your comments down below because we want to know what it is that you guys are thinking about everything that we talk about. So let's get started here. And today we have Louise. Louise is a friend of mine from about, 20 years ago? Something like that? Well,
yeah,
we've known each other longer than that, but we haven't talked in about 20 years.
Pretty much.
Yeah, perfect. So Louise, you are a medical laboratory technologist. What in the fuck is that?
Well, it's pretty much, I'm going to say a pathologist bitch. I don't know. We do know 5 different disciplines. So we're trained in microbiology, hematology, chemistry, transfusion sciences, and histology. So we have to know those 5 disciplines. Not necessarily do we practice in them regularly, but during school that you learn those 5 primary disciplines, and then you touch on parasitology and mycology and a few other. Oh, your eyes just bugged out.
That's a lot of ologies that I have no clue what the fuck they are.
Okay, we can break it down. So microbiology, that was probably my favorite subject to learn. So your microbes. So pretty much you are taking a patient sample, any sample, literally, and you're checking it for pathogens. So you can have your normal flora, but then you have your potential pathogens. So a big one would be MRSA, so methicillin-resistant staph. It's because of overtaking antibiotics for little things, these bugs have become resistant to a lot of antibiotics, right? So we pretty much culture them out on agar. We grow it in an incubator or its desired atmosphere. So we have several different types of media plates. So the main one would be blood agar. And then we grow it and then we test it chemically. So different reactions would indicate, okay, this is an E. coli or this is a Pseudomonas. So there's different bacteria that we would know based on chemical reactions. So that's pretty much microbiology, a very vague description, I guess, of it. Hematology is all the blood cells. So you have your white blood cells, and then out of that you have your neutrophils, your eosinophils, your basophils, lymphocytes. So different characteristics of those blood cells would mean different potentially diseases like leukemias. Sometimes mono's a pretty big one, when you get mono as a teenager. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so if your lymphocytes, they would be reactive, and you could tell that looking underneath a microscope, you can see the reactivity, so their plasma is bigger. So there's a lot of different, you have to know your individual blood cells. It's not just blood as a whole. It's you're breaking down all your different white cells, what they do, how they react in the body, and then you're putting it together for, okay, this neutrophil is looking a little bit funky or whatever. And then you're okay, so they could have mono if it fits the demographics of a teenager, whatnot, if they have sore throat, fever, whatever. That it's okay, well, then we run a mono test if we see something like that underneath the microscope, right? So that's the hematology. Chemistry is mostly your electrolytes, creatinine, your urea. So things that like diagnose that way. Diabetes, glucose, that would be a big one that we also do. Like obviously chemistry is huge as far as the amount of tests that we do. We have to know like the chemical reactions that are going on, or how to troubleshoot each of the samples, which a lot of people don't realize that we do. Like I feel like a lot of people just think that we put blood on a machine and the machine just does it, but there's a lot of analysis that goes with it, as far as okay, so I have a critically high glucose, but the person's never had a high glucose before. Like it's kind of, was the blood collected wrong? Like was there something that's happening? Like, so we have to like troubleshoot that sample before we actually give the result to the doctor saying this is what their glucose is, right? Same with like potassium. If you have a high potassium, you would check to see if your sample's hemolyzed, because that would increase your potassium levels, right? So you don't want to say that they have a critically high potassium when it's really normal, because then they're going to treat for a critically high potassium, and then you're going to end up having a critically low potassium. So like there's such that fine area of troubleshooting there. Transfusion science, that would be your ABO blood group, which is the very basic of transfusion science, because there's so many antibodies that somebody can build in their body. So when you take a blood sample from somebody to get them ready for a transfusion, you're making sure they have no antibodies, and then you have to give them blood. If they do have an antibody, you have to give them blood that lacks the antigen for that antibody. Right. So you're making sure blood is compatible. Obviously, you don't want transfusion reactions. So it's pretty, there's a lot of antibodies potentially that you can have. So if you have an antigen, you're not gonna develop that antibody.
Right.
But if you're lacking that antigen, then you could develop the antibody. So we can't give you blood that has the antigen. So okay, for instance, pregnant women, we give them RhoGAM, which is an artificial anti-D.
Yeah.
So if you're like, let's say an A negative blood group, and you are pregnant, then we would give you fake anti-D just in case the baby is potentially has D positive on the red cells. Because if there's a bleed and that goes into the mom's going to develop a real anti-D, which could cross the placenta and cause hemolytic disease of the newborn. Wow. So we do investigate that kind of stuff as well. That's just like your primary example of antibody antigen reaction.
Holy crap. That's like so much shit that you're doing. And honestly, I gotta tell you, there's like 95% of the words that you're saying, I have no fucking clue what it was you were talking about. Like
I completely understand it all. I completely understand it all now.
Yeah.
You should come be a lab tech then.
Yeah, no, I think I got it. I got it.
Good, you're good. Let's get you in the lab.
That's right. I hear there's not enough men there, so.
Yeah. No, there's definitely not. I wish more men would apply to the program, but with my career, a lot of people don't even know about it. Like it's very I didn't even learn about it until like I was a lab assistant prior to becoming a technologist. And I didn't even know the technologist part existed. And then it was then as a lab assistant that I'm like, hey, I wanna do what they're doing. Like, that looks fun. So I decided to go to school for that. But a lot of people don't know about it. I think it's becoming more evident. I know there is a high enrollment rate in our courses. There's only 5 in Ontario that offer the program. But like 60 people probably enroll, but the failure rate is also really high.
Oh yeah, I would have been gone like the second day or something.
It would have to be a high failure rate, like to learn that much. You must be like extremely intelligent.
I wouldn't say I'm intelligent. I would say I had the opportunity to learn, and I took it. I feel like you can learn it. It is stressful. It's a hard program. But I mean, as long as you can buckle down and like get the assignments done, it is okay. There is like you pretty much have to get 80% in most of the subjects, 90% in transfusion science, which makes sense because you don't want to make mistakes in transfusion science. Um, so it is a very, very tough program, but because the outcome of the career is you are working under pressure, you are working very quickly, you're not stopping, like you're just go, 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 and you have to be able to be accurate and fast. So it is a tough program, but I definitely would say it's a rewarding career in the end, for sure.
Sounds like it. How many years is it?
I graduated the lab technologist program in 2015. So I'm in my 5th year.
Well,
Okay.
like I remember watching you go through school on Facebook, and you're going and you're putting up all these slides of different things like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, cool, is this one of those Rorschach things or whatever the hell you call them, or is it one of those 3D puzzle things that you got to like squint your eyes and all of a sudden it comes out at you? Because I had no clue. Like I've seen a lot of different things under microscopes. Well, not personally, but like pictures of things under microscopes, and I couldn't tell you what the fuck that is at all. But I remember you were going through one. Oh, this is this. This is this. This is this. And I'm like, they all look the same to me. Kind of like newborn babies. They all look like a bunch of potatoes. So
I've gotten, I remember posting some stuff while I was in school, and I've gotten like, oh, what planet's that? I'm like, oh, that's thyroid tissue.
yeah.
So, yep. Histology is, I really enjoyed it in school. I wouldn't say I love it in the real world. Like you do mostly like embedding of tissue. So when you do autopsies, like you take out whatever tissues to see if there was disease or whatnot, or even for diagnosis of different diseases. So you take the tissue or the piece of organ or whatever that you've taken out of the body, and then you have to embed it in wax, and then you have to cut it very, very thinly and put it on a slide. And then you do whatever special staining is required, which there's a ton of special stains. So then you give it to a pathologist. But in school, we were learning a lot of what each body tissue looks like underneath the microscope and how it's stained and why it's stained. Whereas in the real world, you're kind of taking the tissue, putting it in wax, cutting it, which is all a very acquired skill to, like, some tissues have more calcium, so you have to decalcify it. So like bone tissue would have to be decalcified before you can even do anything with it. So you have to know what each tissue is, like how it functions, to be able to work with it to cut it properly. And then you have to know like how to stain it too. Like I don't work in histology, so it's been a while, but there is a lot of that knowledge. But I was more interested in what everything was underneath the microscope, which is what we don't do as a technologist. But it is pretty interesting. But I do remember posting all those all those pictures of all the things underneath the microscope, all my blood cells. I actually, when I was in school, I made little cue cards and like had pictures and then everything on the back of it, describing what organ it was and what the function of it was and everything like that. It is.
As I said, to me, it's still like one of those 3D pictures there that you got to try to squint your eyes and look at. Like it just, yeah. That's why I could never do something like that.
What always amazes me about technicians of any sort is how they can look at something and they see what they see. You talk about people asking about those pictures you're putting up, like X-ray technicians, for example. Like I've seen them put up an X-ray slide and say, "Do you see the crack in this bone?" No, I don't. I don't see it at all. Like it all looks the same. And somehow you guys manage to separate and figure out what is what. Like, how does that, are you born with that ability? Is that something you learn over time? Like, how do you differentiate everything?
I feel like naturally a lab tech is very detail orientated. So like I will pick up things, like I look at a picture and I don't see what's at the front of the picture. I look in the background. Like that's just my natural, like I just pick up those little things. Like I'm very observant, and I feel like most techs do have that observancy skill. Like I don't I don't know if that's really acquired. Maybe it's acquired while you're growing up. I'm not sure. I know I'm very detail orientated and attention to detail. So like when you're looking at a white blood cell underneath the microscope, like you're definitely like all the different stages of a neutrophil, like one of your main white blood cells, like you can have like a promyelocyte all the way down to a neutrophil, and like all the stages in between you have to know, like as soon as it indents what stage it is, when the granules go away what stage it is. So like you're very very detailed oriented. It definitely would be something that you would want to go into this program.
Wow. Okay, so now I got a question, because I watch a lot of TV, a lot of TV. I've got lots of time to watch a lot of TV.
It's
So,
not true.
huh?
I said it's not true. They're never accurate.
Okay, so but what TV show and possibly character would get closest to what it is that you do? Can you
Okay,
think of
I
one?
don't really watch TV. I heard a lot of my teachers or professors and fellow classmates have watched Breaking Bad.
Okay.
I have never seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
I know.
that's not right.
I
Okay.
know. I'm fired. I've never seen it. I don't even really know what it's about. But I heard the accuracy doesn't irritate you. If
Right.
like a lot of my professors, like maybe they're the same as me in the aspect where it's like, that's not right. Like, the whole time like you're watching a show, you're just like, that's not it at all. And it almost irritates you, so you don't want to watch those shows.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were watching Breaking Bad. I don't know if there are science parts in it. Are there? I've never seen it.
Well,
They
it's
make
either
meth.
that or your professors all want to make meth, or we're making meth. I don't know.
No, they definitely wouldn't be doing that. But what would be the chemistry composition behind it?
Right.
Like, is there like pipetting properly? Are they actually talking about different compositions properly? Like that's probably where they'd be at, where it's like, okay, well that's accurate. Like there's I remember seeing, I can't remember what it was. It was on a Facebook. In a lot of medical lab technologist Facebook groups.
Mhm.
So a lot of us, like sometimes we have our joking memes, and sometimes it's like, oh, look what they think of us now, like
Yeah.
But sometimes it like they do have like, oh, I've had this patient with this situation, and like, what do you guys think of it? Like really interesting stuff. But there was one episode, I don't know what show it was, but they were talking about needing blood, and they were talking as if if like negative blood groups, and made it that it was like this most rarest thing in the world, and like it didn't work, and I'm like, that's not right. I'm like, that's not how it works. So I feel like a lot of shows, I just don't watch them because they don't give a proper representation of
Right.
what we even do.
Right.
So
So even though the science might be really off and stuff like that, even the actual position of a character, that's pretending to be a medical laboratory technologist is like, yeah, that's not what we do at all.
yeah.
Okay.
I have watched Big Bang Theory, which doesn't really cover what a technologist does,
Yeah.
but what I know as a technologist, Big Bang Theory actually does have like a ton of accurate like statements in it, or characters or whatever, like from what I know. But that they don't really touch on lab technology. It's mostly like neuroscience and stuff. But
Yeah.
as far as when they go into their lab chats, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's totally true or whatever. But I mean, as far as like you said,
So
with
the
the
Big Bang
couch,
Theory turned into more of a drama for you as opposed to a comedy, because you could actually understand everything they were saying.
yeah, yeah. like, oh, okay, I get that. But what you were telling me to watch a show, was it House or what
Um,
show did you?
I think it was The Good Doctor or something like that.
That's it.
And he had
That's
his
it. Yeah.
girlfriend there. I think she was actually a pathologist though. Where she was,
Okay.
they would take the samples to her, say, here you go, you need to analyze this, figure this out, and figure out what's going on. And she'd come back with a recommended, this is what you need to do with the blood, or this is what you need to do with this, or here's what I found out, so here's your options. So is
Okay.
that kind of like what you do?
Like we work directly under a pathologist.
Okay.
So like different hospitals have different operating procedures. So like I know I've been at some hospitals where the technologist would actually perform the autopsy, extract all the body parts, lay it out anatomically on a tray, and then the pathologist comes down and inspects the organs and cuts out whatever they want and says like what part they want of what organ. And then other hospitals, it's a lab assistant actually helps the doctor, but the doctor's present while they're doing it. So as far as that would be a histology area of medical lab technology. But I mean, even if there's something like like if I'm like, I think this person's getting leukemia or needs flow cytometry to help diagnose the leukemia, I would notice that in a blood smear and I'd be like, hold on. And I would bring that blood smear to a pathologist and say, hey, can you look at this? I think we need to order flow. And then they would suggest whether or not flow would be ordered. And then we would make sure the ordering doctor was ordering flow for that sample.
Okay, what's flow?
Flow cytometry would be a method of testing. So you have your CD markers, let's say, for leukemias. Like you'd have different cell markers. They're called CD markers. And it would go through a test. So it's just a method of testing. It's called flow cytometry.
Okay.
To get a result on which CD markers you would have, because there are tons of different types of leukemia. Like
What?
a
But all the
lot.
TV shows say that there's one.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. Like you have like your M1 through M9, which is like your mostly like your typical leukemia, I guess you can say. So like chronic myelocytic leukemia. There's acute myelocytic, there's chronic lymphocytic, there's acute lymphocytic, and each one, like even the acute lymphocytic has 3 different types. So there's a ton of different types of leukemia, which you learn in hematology. So you do have to know, like, okay, this slide kind of looks this way, so I'm going to bring it to a pathologist, and the pathologist is going to suggest to do this extra testing, more specific testing for these different leukemias. So like each leukemia has different CD markers that you would try to find. I'm trying to keep it like not technical so people understand, so I'm not just talking.
Well, I hear the word marker all the time. What does that mean, a marker?
Because I'm thinking the ones that you sniff, but
Yeah. It's like the word flow. I thought that meant like a once a month visitor to women before right now.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that too.
okay.
Um,
But no, like markers, because I hear that all the time. The markers. Like, what does that mean in layman's terms?
like real layman's terms, you got to remember you're dealing with 2 really dumb white boys. I'm feeling dumber by the second, honestly.
Okay, like I don't even know how you would put it. Like it's pretty much, let's call it a flag on a cell.
Okay.
Like you have, like you're testing, you're trying to find that one flag that's associated with that cell and that disease. So it's like a puzzle piece that you're putting together. So you're like, you have this test developed to find this flag, but marker. So you're like, okay, let's put it together where it's like, okay, so now this test has found this marker. and then how high is that marker going to be, right, to detect it. So sometimes like things become undetectable levels, where you can't pick it up because there's not enough in the body or in the cell. But that's what flow cytometry is more sensitive. So it picks up a smaller amount,
Okay.
and that opposed to like a generic testing.
Right. Right. Okay.
So like a marker is just like literally it's a flag on a cell, like to put it in layman's terms, I guess.
So a marker is just what proves that this person has whatever it is they have.
It
Like if it's a
proves that
leukemia.
cell, it proves that cell has that disease, and then depending on how many markers, I guess, would be how progressed it is.
Wow.
Okay.
If like, does that?
It's
Well, it
making
makes
a little
sense.
more sense. But as I say, you're dealing with two really dumb white guys here. That wow, like I think we finally found the one person that's going to make us feel real stupid on this podcast here. So
No, not at all.
you're definitely way smarter than us. Like, we're still hitting, rocks with hammers and stuff. But, that's awesome. Like, what I will fully admit, I didn't understand half of what it was that you said, but it was fucking interesting as hell. I gotta watch more TV shows or whatever, but
it's a very interesting career for sure. Like the things I've learned in school, even though they're not necessarily applied in what I do, but it helps. It's definitely that stepping stone if you want to specialize. So like, I am just like your general laboratory technologist, but I have the basic information to be like, oh,
general. Holy shit!
That is general. So like, if I wanted to like go to public health and do parasitology or do virology or do mycology, so that's mycology would be the study of fungus. Parasitology, parasites. They do a lot of like microbiology as well. Virology, for instance, the day and age we're in, like a lot of technologists are performing these COVID tests. That's people, my colleagues are performing these tests, right? So they're the ones that are doing the PCR testing on the samples that we get from all these patients for potential COVID, right? So I mean, a lot of my coworkers have specialized into that department. So you can do all that. Like I am definitely 100% a basic technologist.
Wow.
Yeah.
All that smart shit you just all said there, and that's basic.
That's
yeah.
basic.
Apparently that's not something I'm getting into.
It is. I'm a horrible teacher though. So if you have a good teacher, it will make it a lot better.
Okay, but so that's a whole lot of science and technology and stuff like that. And as we were saying at the beginning, you have this whole STEM field, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And every day you end up hearing, oh, we need to get women into the STEM fields. We need to get more women in this field and stuff like that. How do you find the percentages are of women versus men in like your field that you have?
Like it's definitely more biased towards women for sure.
Yeah.
It's I honestly don't even know how it became such a woman predominant field too, because you think like back even 30-40 years ago, like a lot of the male scientists, like a lot of scientists were male, right? Like I feel like at that point maybe it was predominantly male and they were trying to get women in, but it is predominantly women now. Like I've worked at a few hospitals. Right now I don't have any male colleagues except for like the bosses. like other hospitals, it's been very minimal. Like, as I said, like my graduate, like we had 60 people enter the program. I had probably the highest graduating percentage, which we had 23 people that finally graduated. And I think 6 of them, maybe 7, were males out of
Wow.
all that. And we actually had a fairly high male class. So it's, I feel like there's not enough men in this career at all. Like,
Right.
I wish more men would get into it. But then are they more focused on skill trades? Are they encouraged not to do it? Like, I don't know necessarily if it's women need to be encouraged to go into the scientists. I think maybe men are just not being encouraged to go into it. I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah.
sure why there's such a lack of men in our field, but it's definitely there. Like, I feel like everyone knows nursing, and I think that's there. More men are becoming nurses, and I feel like it's mostly because nobody knows what a technologist does. They don't know we exist. They think that we're all phlebotomists when we're not. Um, there's a phlebotomist, which is like a weekend certificate type program, like not necessarily weekend, but like it's very, okay, you do phlebotomy. Then you have your uh, certificate program for lab assistant or technician, and then you have your advanced diploma for technologist. So most technologists have already gone to university in some sort of science field, has their degree, then goes back to school for the technologist program. So there are different levels, but a lot of people just generalize us as lab assistants pretty much.
Right.
So that probably is what could deter people from wanting to do it. I'm not sure. But it's definitely more of a behind the scene type of career.
Yeah. Well, like, because Nate and I, we were talking about this earlier, and we understand that like back in the '70s and stuff like that, and before that, encouraging women to get out there instead of being barefoot and pregnant and staying at home with the kids and all this good stuff. Get out there and get a job. So it was like, hey, ladies, check it out. There's a whole world out there for you to have a career in. And so I could understand at that point in time, pushing to have, women get out there, get into the community, get into all the different fields that they could possibly get into. But lately, we've still been hearing so much about women need to get into this whole STEM field. And for myself, like, I don't understand why we need to encourage anybody to get into any field whatsoever. It should be, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to do math and technology stuff? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a mechanic? I think in today's day and society, everybody knows that the opportunities are out there for you to do whatever the fuck it is you want to do. It comes down to actual ability and want to fucking do something is really what it comes down to. Do you have a take on that?
I agree 100%. The only thing that I would comment on is the lack of skill trades. Not necessarily saying it needs to be focused on women need to join it or men need to join it or whatnot. I just feel like skill trades are definitely people aren't going into them as much.
Yeah.
But as far as science and technology, I feel like there are tons of women. Like, there are plenty of women and men in the field, and I don't necessarily think it needs to be more. Even when I went to school, they have like grants for women in technology still. So it's like, oh, and I'm like, how much grant money do you have if all these women are in here? Like, it was just kind of one of those things. As soon as I saw are you female and in a science technology program, and they do have grants for it, and I'm just like, okay. Like, I know women who are engineers. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it was kind of crazy to me back then. Like, that was 2015, I guess. That I was like, I thought we already went through this. I thought we already knew that we could do whatever we want. Like, so yeah, like, I definitely don't think it necessarily needs to be pushed that females need to get into that field, but I definitely think skilled trades is lacking. I feel like more people in general, I don't care if it's male or female, I feel like skilled trades is definitely where it's like, did you forget about them? Like, do you know that they still exist? Like, I feel like you could make pretty good money if you're interested, but it definitely goes down to, are you interested in doing something for the rest of your life? You definitely want to have something, like if you're going to be working a job, let's say 40 hours a week, make sure you like it. Do
Yeah.
something you like. It doesn't matter, who's pushing who to do what. Like if I listen to my mom, she wanted me to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
But
And
like that doesn't sound interesting to me.
And like I know like your sister, if I'm not mistaken, like she's a firefighter, is she not? Or she was for
No, she still does volunteer firefighter. She does nonviolent crisis intervention training now. She owns her own company now.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So I mean, like she does all the typical man stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I always call him my big brother.
Yeah. Well,
she always was.
That's why I don't understand. Like there are so many women out there in the different fields and stuff like this, but you only ever hear about we need to get more women in here. We need to get more minorities. We need to get the LGBTQ in here. Nobody ever says we need to get more men, in these specific trades. Myself, going into public relations, it's a female-dominated industry. And as you said, there's all these grants for women to go and do this and go do this. I don't know of any grant that said, hey, you're a dude that wants to go public relations? Here, we have a grant for you. Like there isn't any of that out there. Like to me, it just baffles my mind, especially when people go and start harping on the fact that we need to get, the women, minorities, LGBTQ, like they like to hit all these little groups of people saying we need more people from this segregated group to get into here. But nobody ever says, well, we need more men in this female dominated one. Nobody ever says that. And like I remember I had an argument with one of my classmates the one time there where she ended up going saying, because the question was asked, how do you feel about the disproportionate numbers between males and females in the PR industry, and do you believe that that's an issue? And I said, no, I really don't care about the disproportionate numbers. It doesn't make a difference. The reason that there's more women in the PR industry is more women decided that they wanted to do it, as opposed to the men. It's that simple. And she went on to say, no, we need to create more opportunities for women. And I'm like, well, then who's creating the opportunities for the men to get into the PR industry if you want to go by quotas? Because that's apparently what she wanted. She needed more quotas. And as I said, quotas don't create diversity. Quotas create division, right? Because if you're grabbing people just because you need to fit a quota doesn't mean that you're getting the top quality people. You might get lucky and you get a top quality person, but you're just creating division because it's like, okay, well, you had these people that were far better at doing this job than these other people, but these people got in because of a quota, because we need to be diverse. So
well, and I would take it even a step further, Greg, because my whole thing is like I agree with everything you're saying, but when it comes to women particularly, I'll talk about that. Any field that they go into now, I don't think that anybody looks at it sideways anymore. Like you hear occasionally a female race car driver making it to the top leagues and people say, well, that's really cool. Like, that's awesome. She must have worked really hard. Whatever. With guys, if they get into specific fields, still to today, people will look at them sideways. Like, really? Like, why is this guy choosing to do this? Like, almost like there's something wrong with him. Like, I'll give an example. So a guy decides, I'm going to get into working at a daycare with like children 3 and under.
Yeah.
I think there's still that stigma there where people are like, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he choosing to do that? Like, is he a predator? Like, why would he want to be with little kids all day long? Like, I think there's still some of those things where guys go into where they're looked at not like they're not right. Like there's something wrong with it. Where women, like there are dominated fields where that there's not a lot of women in, like mechanics, things like that. But I don't think that anybody looks at them strangely anymore for wanting to be in those fields. It's just like you say, Greg, they choose not to.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're somewhere else. Their focus is elsewhere. So,
well, like, what was it? Nate and I, we went to the local university to go and do some field interviews, you know, that never turned out because we didn't know how to record out in public, and that was interesting in itself. But we talked to a lot of women, and every time we asked them, you know, like we start off the conversation just to find out, you know, kind of like break the ice before we actually started getting into some of the big questions that we really want to know about. We asked them, you know, okay, well, what are you taking here in school? And every single one of them was in a STEM field, like engineering, and like they were giving me titles of things that I didn't even know existed. You know, like I'm sure like Elon Musk and fucking all them trying to send the space shuttle to Mars, which I want to get on. I'm positive that, you know, they developed those jobs just for stuff like that, you know, and it was unbelievable. Like there's so many women doing what it is that they want, and I think it's fucking fantastic. But I really don't see why we have to have a push on anything, you know. Everybody knows, do what the fuck you want, when the fuck you want, and everybody just be happy, you know.
I feel like they definitely don't need the push at all. Like maybe be informed that careers exist. Like as I said, I didn't know about medical lab technology until I was a lab assistant, right? I didn't know that there was that other tier to the career. So I mean, like to like get different careers, like get people informed of different careers, great, but push them, I don't think it's necessary.
and I agree. I think a big part of it is like educating people about the jobs that are out there, right? Not so much, hey, you know, you're from this group or from this whatever, so you should really look at doing this. Like, why not look at what that person's talents are, what they seem to enjoy doing, and then educating them? Because I didn't know that there was so many different levels of technicians, right? And maybe I don't want to just, you know, take blood every day, but what you do sounds pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know, like, and would have me using my brain every day.
Yeah,
right?
sometimes I don't really use it at work, but you know, I try.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the big thing. Like you said it right there with the whole letting people know what's out there. Because like you told me before, you know, we were having a conversation over Facebook, and you said that you're a medical laboratory technologist. And I'm like, cool, not a fucking clue, you know? And that's the thing. There are so many jobs and careers out there. Like, you know, I remember being in like grade 6 or grade 7, and they're like, well, you got to get ready for high school there. So getting ready for high school means plan what it is that you want to do in the future. So here's 5 jobs that you can choose from, you know? And I'm like, cool, I'm joining the Army. That's all I needed to worry about, you know? But even within the Army, like once I got in, I found out that there were other jobs within inside the Army. And I was like, wait a second, you mean there's more than just what I'm doing? There's more than this? You know, there are so many jobs out there, so many different careers. And I think that's where, you know, the schools and all these organizations that are pushing different groups to try to go to, they need to actually be pushing what these different careers are. Like, look, what do you like doing? Well, I like camping and fishing. All right, well, have you thought about working outdoors? You know, I like looking through microscopes and playing with blood and doing weird shit. Have you thought of a medical, you know, laboratory technologist? You know, what the fuck is that? You know, and get into that shit. Let people know what the fuck's out there. Because I think that was the big thing when they started having the push to get women to get into all these fields back in the fucking 70s. Nobody knew what women could do, you know, or what jobs were out there for women to do, you know, because as we all know, they were supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, and, you know, making dinner. That's what they were supposed to do, you know. But since then, everybody has all these different jobs, and there's so many more jobs. Every day, a new job is being created. And I think if we let people know what's out there, I think that's what we got to do.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Like as I said, like it's being the middle person, I guess, as far as sciences go. I wish I would have learned about it a lot sooner in life. Like I probably would have chosen this. Like, I mean, I won science fairs when I was in grade 7, so obviously I was a nerd. But anyways, like I definitely had that science knack. I just, you think science, and I didn't want to be like, I don't want to be, like big scientist. Like I don't want to be developing vaccines or whatever. Like I like the level of science that I do right now.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like I've told you before in previous conversations, like it's either young women or women almost retired. So like even in my career, you've got a 50% retirement rate in the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have the people that know about the career, people in the schools, and people graduating. So it's like not too many people know about it. And then the ones that do are applying, and then half of them fail out. So only half graduate, and then we don't even have enough to replace who's retiring.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and there's
it's
so
very,
many. There's so many
not
of
enough.
it in Canada right now. Like they're saying, like so many of the fields with the numbers retiring and the numbers coming in, we don't have close to enough people to cover all the jobs. But then
If you,
my
oh,
other
sorry.
question to you is there fear with your field that it'll eventually just be taken over by technology, like computers? Like there's so
Um,
many of those too, right? Where like there's a job now, but in 20 years, is it all going to be done by computer and robot in a lab?
um, I feel like a lot of it has gone into machine, but you still need the brain to troubleshoot. You like I have to fix the analyzers. Like I have to know how to maintain the analyzers. Like I have to calibrate all the reagents. I have to run the QC to make sure that they're accurate. Like I have to do all these pre-analytical things to make sure I'm getting an accurate result to give to the doctor. So that can never be really replaced because we do have the instrumentation, but we still need somebody that knows how to fix it. We need somebody that knows how to calibrate all the reagents on it. Like you still need humans performing these jobs. Like I do know a lot of it is going into machines, but then it's like because we don't have people to hire. If you go on Indeed on any given day and type medical laboratory technologist, like tons of jobs all the time. Like it's very it's in high demand right now for sure. Which puts me at a benefit where I could literally like I'm like I can apply anywhere pretty much. Like it's it's definitely I like that feeling where I'm like, do I want to go to Nova Scotia or do I want to go to BC or do I want to stay here? Like I do like having those options. But that's because nobody's in the field. Like it's hard to get people either interested or even possibly just get them to know that that career exists.
Well, that's awesome. And we've hit on it many, many times already. Letting people know that these careers do exist. Like I just find it absolutely mind-boggling. My head's still swimming from everything you explained at the beginning about what it is that you do. I still don't get it. You had acronyms and names and letters and stuff like that flying out, and I imagine it'd be like if you went and jumped into the army there and walked up to somebody and they started telling you all about something that was going on there. You'd be like, "What the fuck?"
I have no clue.
Yeah.
No clue whatsoever. And
But
that like Brian
yeah.
talked to me about cars, and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah, but the
it's
difference is somebody like you could spend time with Greg and learn what he knows, Greg could spend the rest of his fucking life with you and wouldn't learn anything.
Oh, I'm sure I could teach him
That's the
eventually.
difference there.
Well, you'd have to be like willing and want to learn. Like, I guess having the scientific mind, I have that curiosity. Like, I'm always curious about things. I was probably that fucking irritating kid saying, why is the sky blue? Why is the sun yellow? Like, why is this? Like, I probably asked my parents why, like, way too many times. Just, like, I just have that curiosity nature. Like, I'm always curious about things.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people are, which, like, you know, that, like, the whole Google diagnosis stuff. Like, people Google everything as like a substitute doctor or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I guess like a lot of people are curious. They just, I don't know if they just don't know that, I don't know, like they shouldn't be Googling everything. Like, if you want to know about your blood test result, there are accredited sites you can go to that actually have the information, right? Like, I personally use labtestsonline.org, which has like every lab test and like the reason why you do it and like what results mean pretty much. Like, but then people just go to chat forums and, oh, well, so-and-so said this is what this means. And it's just like, okay, like you can't just go off of what other people are saying too, right?
Yeah.
I do have that natural curiosity, but I do think a lot of people do. So I don't know why it would be not a sought after field when people naturally have curiosity.
Yeah.
Or thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. So what's your, knowing what you know and what you do on a daily basis, what's your take on the coronavirus? Should we be panicked? Are we good?
I feel like I don't really have
And
a.
we'll just make this as a disclaimer. This is your personal opinion, not an official.
This is just a personal opinion.
Yeah.
Like, it's there. Coronavirus has been around for a long time. This is obviously like a different genome of the coronavirus. It's similar to SARS and MERS, so the sudden acute respiratory syndrome and Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. It's more closer to those strains of coronaviruses. So I mean, I don't know, like, you have to think too, like, when influenza first came out, like, we're not even close to the numbers of that. Like, we could be, like, social distancing or physical distancing or whatever the fuck you want to call it, the stay the fuck away from me shit, which is great. I love it. Like, I mean, I'm always telling people, yo, 6 feet, back up. I love it. So back in 1918, when influenza, like the H1N1, the Spanish flu, you're looking at 500 million people worldwide were positive. 50 million people worldwide died. And I don't know if this is the second wave, if this is the first wave, like, was there, like, when there's a little bit of a flu outbreak, was it coronavirus, like, was it this strain? I don't know. Like, I'm not a virologist. I don't know confidently, but like, it's so, you can't know anything this soon, like during the pandemic. Like, all this research is going to be done, like, it's getting done now until when it's over, and that's when all this information is going to come out, right? Like, it's hard to do studies. Like, I was interested in the one study that they started doing from the cruise ship. So like, everyone's isolated on the cruise ship. They were able to test everybody on the cruise ship, and that 20% were asymptomatic. So it's like, have the asymptomatics been walking around with this for months prior to this? Like, I don't really have like a confident take on it. It is what it is. It's present. It's obviously a different way of life. I don't mind it. Like, I live in the country. I live on the lake. We have a huge garden. Like, it's just, I'm kind of like, oh, I have to go to the store occasionally. And other than that, I live in the country, like, away from people. Like, I'm fairly isolated. I still obviously have to go to work. So, I mean, I feel like it hasn't changed a whole lot other than the fact that I can tell people to back up.
And it's polite to do it this time. Back off.
Now it's in my rights to say, get away from me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I wouldn't say I'm terrified of it. The only thing I'm worried about, as far as it goes, is that I am only part-time where I work, even though I work close to full-time hours. So if I was to get it, like, how am I going to be protected at work? Like, that's the only thing that I worry about, where it's like, okay. And then with the lack of testing, and that is due to reagent issues. Like, I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah,
Um,
reagent. Is that when like 007 comes back from retirement?
no, no, and I wouldn't have even thought about putting it that way. That's like
That's where
the
my head goes.
well, it's funny because there's a meme saying, how do you know the difference between a plumber and a scientist? And they have get them to pronounce this word, and in my, like, what I saw was unionized, but it's spelled unionized.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that is so funny. Like, a plumber would say unionized, and I would say unionized.
Yeah.
Which is kind of quite funny how you said reagent that way. Anyways, so you need different reagents to perform tests. So and swabs and people and machines. So like if we have like we've opened up so many different sites to be able to test for this COVID. So there's swabs that are being manufactured to grab the sample. But then when you put it, like when you get it ready for testing, you do have to have reagents. It doesn't just like, you don't just flash a swab underneath a light and it's like, boof, coronavirus. Like you do have to extract the RNA. You have to transcribe it. You have to amplify it. So you take your RNA to your DNA, you amplify the DNA, and then you can test it, right? So there's all these stages that require reagents to extract it, right? Anyways, so yeah, there's definitely a shortage. From what I
So it's not
hear,
just like a pregnancy test?
a pregnancy test is done by enzyme-linked immunoassay. So it,
No, you just piss on a stick and it says turns blue.
okay, true, but there is like methodology that goes into why it turns blue.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't just like, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But so the test on why it turns blue is called ELISA or ELISA, however you want to pronounce it. It's ELISA. Anyways, so yes, there's different reagents that make those reactions happen.
Right.
So when you have your HCG hitting this enzyme, it turns blue.
So we don't have a coronavirus pregnancy stick yet.
Essentially, that's true. We do not have a coronavirus pregnancy stick yet.
Okay.
We'll say that. I mean, there's definitely
right
there's
now,
definitely
people like you have to go through, take the stick, and then go and put it through all of its stuff to find out if it will turn blue. Instead of the stick automatically doing it.
In very layman's terms, yeah, we can say that.
Fuck, I'm half smart.
Hey, you got it. See, I'll get you doing this stuff soon enough. You pretty much like you are extracting, like you have to take the RNA, so like the basic structure of the virus, and then you do have to transcribe it to DNA, which is like your RNA goes to DNA, and then you have to amplify the DNA to test it. So yes, it's definitely a process, but in the end result, you are making it flash positive whether or not it's positive. So like, yeah. Yeah, we'll go with your stick stick thing. That would be a very good layman's terms.
Perfect. Okay, so now I got a question for you, because all this shit that you do seems entirely fucking fascinating. Do you guys go and do any tours of where you work? Because I would love to get in there, and I'm sure Nate would love to as well, to get in there and you go, see, this is what the microscope says. Here's your piss stick, Greg, that we were talking about earlier.
Stick. I feel like you like, obviously you have to go through like management and stuff. You wouldn't be allowed anytime soon.
Yeah, not next week, that's for sure.
Well, like probably a month or so. Who
Yeah.
knows how long this is going to drag out to be. I believe, like, we do have Take Your Kids to Work Day. So, I mean, there is the possibility, right? Like,
So me
you
and
do
Greg
have
could
to
be your kids?
Sure. He's, what, a
Perfect.
40-year-old? You'll be 41. 40?
Yeah,
41.
41.
Greg, you're going to be 41.
Oh,
God, you're old.
I know.
Anyways, you just have to sign confidentiality forms. But
Right.
it has happened. Like, we do have visitors come through. Like, we do bring nursing students, even though I think nurses should spend a lot more time in the lab. I feel like they definitely don't understand a lot of what we do. But they do come in for like a quick half-hour tour or whatever. But yeah, like, I'm pretty sure you can, like, I know I've worked in places where there has been visitors to come see what you do, how it is. Bigger sites are probably more interesting, I would say. I work at a smaller site, so we do more basic stuff. Like, we do more multitasking. We're not just on one bench doing one thing. We're doing multiple things at once. So that's what a smaller site is. A bigger site, you are more specialized and you are mostly doing one thing at a time. Like, it depends on what you like. I do like the variety. But yeah, like, I would say probably go into a larger center, if you can get into all their specialized departments. But I mean, if you just want to see the basic level, like, a smaller hospital has more time, I would say, to be able to take you through. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it could be
Perfect.
done. Like, I know I've asked to have somebody, and I was approved it, but it never happened. So yeah, it definitely can happen if you really want to take a tour of everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm pretty sure Nate and I will be getting a hold of you to say, hey, take us on a tour, show us all this stuff that you talked about. Because honestly, this has been absolutely fascinating. You know,
like,
all the shit.
I do have my own microscope, and I do have slides from school.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could show you slides.
Look, the boat, pirate ship.
Pirate ship. It's Pluto. No, it's a different planet.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we could probably do that if you really, really wanted to. I'd have to talk to some people, but
Perfect.
it is interesting. I wish more people did know about this career, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Nate, you got any last points?
No, I'm good. But if we do a day there, we have to put out the rumor that we saw Trudeau's test.
Yes, I think that'd be great.
And the syphilis was positive.
Yes, I think that'd be great. All right. Well, Louise, we just want to thank you so much for coming in and joining us today, explaining all this stuff that I'm still got a dictionary that I got to figure out what the hell's going on. But it was absolutely awesome. You know, we talked about what it is that you do as a medical laboratory technologist, and the fact that this is a career that not a lot of people know about. And then we've also talked about the whole STEM field itself, like everything to do with the STEM field and pushing people towards different things, and just the fact that, you know what, people just get out there and do what you want to do. And that honestly, we think that everyone should just know what careers are out there. Let everybody make their choice. Let's not push anybody towards anything. Just let people do what the fuck they want to do, you know, because just because you're pushed towards something doesn't mean you're going to enjoy fucking doing it. So, Louise, thanks again for joining us today. And folks, make sure you hit that subscribe and bell icon down below so that you can stay up to date with us. Leave a comment down below and follow us on all our other platforms, including all of our audio platforms that we have. Till next time, we'll talk to you all later.
Later.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Why are you so offended?